Welcome to Pour Temecula, a local wine, beer, and beverage podcast. Thank you for joining us on our very first episode. We're your hosts, Rick DeLucio and Shannon Cole, and we're excited to kick things off. In this episode, you'll get to know us, our passion for Temecula's wine and beer scene, and what inspired us to start this podcast. We'll also share what's in store for future episodes, from interviews with winemakers and brewers to tastings, industry insights, and more. So grab a glass, settle in, and let's dive into Pour Temecula. If you have listened this far, thank you for joining us on the Pour Temecula podcast. Our local wine and beer scene is thriving, and we're here to take you behind the scenes with the people who make it happen. I'm Rick DeLucio, joined by my co-host Shannon Cole, and together we're diving into the stories behind the bottles, meeting passionate winemakers, breweries, industry veterans, and local insiders who help shape this region. Expect interviews, tastings, insider tips, and even a little friendly competition as we bring Temecula's flavors to life. And we want you to be part of the conversation. Have a question about wine or beer, favorite local spot we should check out, a topic you'd love us to cover, send us a message and we might feature it on an upcoming episode. You've heard enough of my voice, so let me introduce my co-host Shannon. So Shannon, tell us a little bit about yourself, where your passion for wine came from, and how you ended up in Temecula.
I grew up in Orange County, California, and spent most of my life there by the beach. I was never really into wine. And then as I got a little bit older, I think into my 30s, I did my very first wine tasting out here in Temecula, first wine tasting ever, when I was 31. And we got a party bus, did the whole thing. It was so much fun. Don't remember parts of it. And I think that kind of being out here in the vineyards, drinking the wine where it was made, I thought was really interesting. And we kind of started to come out here a little bit more often. And it got to the point in 2020 when, everything hit the fan. we realized that we could move because we were working remotely. And so we made the move out here to Temecula, and that really kind of sealed the deal for me. And I started a spreadsheet, and my goal was to go out and try all of the wines here.
So have you made it to all of them yet?
No. Not even close. Having two toddlers really restricts how often we can go. But it's definitely a goal of mine, and we've tried some really good ones so far and some not so good ones. I also started studying for my WSET level 3 and got that certification last year. So very, very excited to have that. And I'm working on my Court of Masters this year. What about you, Rick? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in Temecula.
I grew up in Indiana. I lived in Chicago. I lived in St. Louis. And in early 2018, we bought a house in Temecula. I had never even heard of Temecula before. I had no idea that there were vineyards here at all. And when our realtors told us that, I was like, yeah, right. A place I've never heard of, because I've been in the wine for like 25 years, since the early 2000s. And I got into it in Chicago. Had some great tasting groups, great friends who really educated me about fine wines around the world, had all kinds of great stuff. And yeah, I had never heard of Temecula at all. So it was a bit of a little bit of a surprise to come out here and really love the region. I think I love more than the wines or the people that are here make it special. The wines can kind of be varying in quality, but it's the people that are here, the people that live here, work in the industry, are really the focus for me. And especially starting this podcast, is that I want to tell their stories and help them tell their stories. And I'm inquisitive, so I want to learn more too. At the same time, I have almost completed my WSET diploma. And then last year, I competed in the Spanish Wine Master National Competition, finishing second in the United States. Previously, before all that, I had written a kind of Temecula wine review newsletter called Temecula Wine Quarterly, which my original intent was to come out quarterly with quarterly reviews of wines. However, after about one quarter, that was financially untenable. It was too much wine. And I was paying for that. I was rather independent in that. And then after I kind of like moved off from writing, I have really wanted to do a podcast for a while now. And that's why we're here right now. Or some sort of something more than just writing. Mm-hmm. Writing's great. Podcasts and YouTube stations are really a new medium. And even though they're kind of old in what they do, more people are digesting content that way. And I figure it's just a different way to get out the message about what the region, not just Temecula, but DeLucio, Fallbrook, Warner Springs, Murrieta, the breweries that are in Murrieta, and to just tell more of that and be independent and be inquisitive, really, and pass that along. So what are some of your favorite wines or wineries, breweries, or I don't like saying bars, but drinking establishments?
Gosh, some of my favorite wineries, I really love Palumbo Family Vineyards. I think they make excellent wine. I was blown away by their Sangiovese the first time I tried it. And I've been featuring them in blind tasting events at my house for the last year or so, and they come out on top a lot. I really like them. I think Botaya has a really good Provence style rosé of Sangiovese. It's delicious. I also really like A's Winery. I recently did a tour over there with Dirk and Michelle, and not only are they lovely people and have a lovely property, but their wine is delicious. They had a Grenache Blanc that was fantastic. I really thought that was special. I also really like, we've talked about Pliny the Elder before. It is my favorite beer, and I normally go over to the local at Vail headquarters to buy it. Sometimes they have it on tap, which is fun. But those are my favorites. I also really like Two Travelers Wine Bar. Not only do I work there, but prior to that, I was a regular, and it was my home away from home. And they just have some fantastic food, great wines, local and non-local, and the people that work there are great.
Yeah, and you should mention that. What are you going to be doing for Two Traveler Wine Bar?
I'm very excited. I have been brought on to Two Travelers Wine Bar to be the wine club manager. We are starting a wine club. Our wine club is alive. You can sign up for it, and our first shipment is going to be coming out in April. So I'm really excited for that. It's been such a fun opportunity.
So we're all about cheap plugs here. So what's the website?
It is twotravelerswinebar.com, and you can click on the wine club tab.
And that's TWO, which we'll also have in the show
Yes.
notes. So not TO or TOO or however
The number
else.
two.
The number two. Like the number two. What are some of the wines that you've liked from here?
I think my favorite, it's an easy Palumbo Sangiovese from their Duefili vineyard, estate vineyard. They make it the Brunello di Montalcino style. They age it for 5 years. It's just delicious. I also really like the Fiano from Botaya. I've been drinking that one quite a bit lately, especially now that it's getting a little bit warmer outside. And Ace Winery has the Grenache Blanc that I mentioned, but also their Cabernet Sauvignon is delicious. What about you? What are some of your favorite wineries?
So I'm going to agree with Ace Winery for sure. I think one of the neat things about Temecula, there's a really wide variance of the types of places that you can go to. Some of them have just tasting rooms and not really a winery attached. You'll find that in Old Town. And then some of them are big venues. Some of them are really small family-run businesses. Palumbo has historically produced really good wines. The Duefili that you mentioned is probably one of the top 5 wines I think that come out of here consistently, vintage to vintage, year to year. And then other ones I really enjoy, Akash. I do like the wines from Robert Bronzoni. They're really well made. The quality has really improved in the last probably like 10 years since the newer winemaker, Olivia. Bew or is it Blue?
I think it's blue.
Blue. Since she took over, she's going to probably listen to this at some point and correct us.
Sorry, Olivia.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But she's been doing a killer job, really raising the profile of wines and wine quality in Temecula. And then I've liked Chapin before. He makes an Alianical out of there. That's really interesting.
Fun.
And then I think a really under the radar one that I don't think about, I never tell people to go to, and I really should start, is Carter Estates. They are really well known for making traditional style sparkling wines, and we tease some upcoming episodes, but one of them we're going to have is all about the sparkling wines that are made here in Temecula, and we'll for sure feature them at that time. But I just adore the Blanc de Blanc, the Blanc de Noir, and then I believe a Brut they make. And those are all super fabulous, really, really well done sparkling wines. And then I will almost always, if someone has a Vermentino on the menu, I will try that Vermentino because I really think it's a delicious white grape for this region, Italian varietal, in a pseudo-Italian-ish area, definitely a warmer Mediterranean climate. And that, I think, does really well. Breweries, I don't know, have you ever had Solaris Brewing? It's kind of up by 8-Bit Brewing, closer to Murrieta than to Temecula.
No, I've been to 8-Bit, but not Solaris.
Solaris, I think this is their 3rd or 4th anniversary coming up, and they make some just creative beers, as well as some very fundamentally sound traditional style, like Pilsners and stouts, and they use grapes too in some of their beers, so they're trying all kinds of different stuff. It always comes out really well, and they kind of have this hip vibe that's unlike anything else. It doesn't fit in with Temecula, that's for sure. I don't think of this as a hip town at all, or like culturally cool kind of town, but you go there and you walk in the door and all their artwork's really cool, hip. Very I just love it. It's a cool vibe, and they always have good food trucks too, really good stuff.
Ooh, that's a plus.
And then from like drinks wise, I think I'm not a big I do like to kind of be adventurous and try new drinks, but I always stick to like an old fashioned or a Paloma is like my personal kind of like nightcap at times. And generally 1909, I've never had a bad drink there. Other than waiting forever to get a drink because it's busy. And then the other one that's kind of a hidden gem too is the Inn at Ponte. In the basement, there's actually a bar down there.
Yeah.
And they have made some really cool drinks too. And I think the one time my wife and I went, I think we went for our anniversary, and one of the stops we went to, it was pretty empty. So you can definitely, at 8 o'clock at night, people are just kind of coming back or from dinner and elsewhere else to the end. But I don't think many people know about that spot.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a hidden gem. They're open late, so.
Yeah, so if you are listening to this and visiting the area, check that out after you've gone to the wineries and gotten something to eat, and you don't want to head back to your room and just hang out in your room and do nothing, or head into Old Town Temecula if you're staying out near the wineries at one of the estates that are out there. Check it out because it's a neat place, and the drinks that we had were really good.
They have a good old fashioned.
So what kind of wines, beers, and drinks do you like?
I definitely lean Italian. I spent some time in Italy, and I just fell in love with Tuscany. If I didn't already love it enough, that really sealed the deal for me. Sangiovese is probably if I had to pick a favorite grape varietal, that would be the one. Beaujolais is a little bit newer to me over the last couple of years. I've only started drinking it, and I love it. It's very bright, refreshing. It's a lighter red. You can even chill it and drink it out by the pool during summer. But yeah, I definitely lean Italian, and then Beaujolais is a good number 2 for me. I've recently gotten into Chardonnay as well. Raj Par really changed my mind on Chardonnay. I was the typical, I don't like the oaky buttery, don't give me anything.
No one likes the oaky buttery. Some people do, but we don't talk about those people.
Yeah. No, yeah. Rajpar really changed my mind on what Chardonnay could be. And
have you had many Oregon Chardonnays?
I have had one from Rajpar. But
okay.
No, not any other
that
than that.
Is really the sweet spot to look for. It's affordable, so you're not paying always $50, $60, $100 for a bottle of Oregon Chardonnay. A lot of people are going to disagree with me. You can come at me. That's fine. You can find me. I like Oregon Chardonnay better than Oregon Pinot Noir. I just don't. I know.
Controversy.
Not really. People in the know. I'm just saying that. Look, and they're because Oregon Chardonnay, a higher acid, less tropical fruits, way less oak. Not a lot of neutral oak.
Okay.
Not nearly as much as the over the top American buttery flavors and sensations. So check that out.
Yeah, that sounds like it's right up my alley.
That's right. There you go.
Yeah.
And you said Pliny's your favorite beer.
It is.
So you're an IPA head.
I am an IPA head. When I first started drinking beer, we'll say when I was 21, Guinness was the only thing I would drink. It was my favorite. It must have been the part Irish in me. But over the years, I've definitely transitioned into really only drinking IPAs. I don't drink beer often, but when I do, that's definitely what I go for.
Hazy IPA?
Hazy, fruity, citrusy.
Just all IPAs.
All of them, yeah.
Okay.
I'll even go for a double.
Well, Pliny is a double.
It doesn't taste like a double, though.
The double. No, it does not. It's amazing how good that tastes. It's very floral, too.
Yeah.
Last night we were tasting it. My neighbor and I was like, this is not like it. It's missing the pine cone and all the other kind of like funkiness of an IPA.
Yeah, no, it's delicious.
And then what about for drinks? What do you like there?
I typically go for an old fashioned. I also really really like an Aperol spritz if it's good. I've not had a lot of good ones, but when I came back from Italy, I went to the Daisy Bar.
Okay.
At Vail headquarters.
Yes.
And reluctantly, I ordered one, knowing it wasn't Italy, and it was delicious. I would say it was probably the best one I've had in California.
Well, I hope it was. I'm not opposed to throwing anybody under the bus on the podcast, but maybe not the Daisy. It's a nice place. I mean, I don't know how. It's basically Aperol and Prosecco, right?
Yeah. Some people just make it too Aperol-y or add some other things in there that don't need to be in there. But yeah, I love a good Aperol spritz. Goat and Vine actually does a fun holiday one. They put a little rosemary sprig in there.
So that is a show that we're going to have to tackle when it comes time later in the year. Around the holiday season, the different places come up with some themed Temecula drinks that are kind of more, kind of seasonal type drinks. And it's kind of a competition, I think.
Yeah.
And they promote it. Temecula Chilled.
Temecula Chilled.
That's what it's called. So that'll be a fun, hopefully we'll survive our podcast until then and we can have a variety of drinks and talk to some people. Myself, my first love in wine was Bordeaux. Like that, and my wife and I were married in 2000. And 2000 was declared one of the vintages, the best vintages ever made. And I was just getting into wine. My wife was like, set some of these wines aside that we could have on our anniversary. And we've never had them on our anniversary. But I did a research. I had a budget, got a variety. I think I mixed 3 cases of 2000 Bordeaux before why they were very inexpensive. And the prices blew up after I had ordered them. This is not the podcast to talk about Bordeaux pricing or futures pricing, but I got them cheaper. I still have most of them today, like really high-end ones that people say are tasting really great. So I should probably taste them, drink them before they go bad, or I either way. Other than that, I just love all types of, as long as it's well-made and interesting wine. Mm-hmm. I could go for everything from sweet Rieslings, which I know aren't popular, to big, rich, hearty red wines, to even buttery Chardonnays. But it's gotta be interesting. You can't just be all butter and cream and all that kind of stuff. It's gotta have something about it. And hopefully over the course of our doing these podcast episodes, we can bring some interesting wines that are made locally here to our listeners, and so you can discover them as we discover them as well. And then for beers, I'm very German, Belgian beer type personality. I was in Germany, in Bamberg, on a beer tour a couple years ago, and just sort of simple. They're not hoppy, although hoppy German beers are kind of a style.
Yeah.
Like that, everybody's going to catch in on the hoppy craze. But they're just solid, well-made Pilsners, lagers that are really tasty. That's it. I think this is, hopefully, if you're listening to this, you got a little bit of flavor for our personalities and our backgrounds and what we're trying to do. And that's kind of the whole point of this. Do you have anything to add before we get to the end? We got something special planned.
I don't. I'm excited for what's next.
We will actually, at the end of the episodes with our interviews, pour 2 wines. One of the wines will be a Temecula or Temecula-based produced wine, and one of the other wine will be the same varietal or the same style wine produced from somewhere else in the world. Could be from California, France, Italy, who knows? And then we have the person taste those 2 wines blind and try to guess which one is from Temecula and which one is not. And then they can also, if they want to, they can take a guess on what it is. Like if it's a Sangiovese, they could say, oh, well, it's a Sangiovese, or they could say it's a Syrah. And what's really important to that is we get people talking about wines and describing it. I love hearing how other people describe a wine. We're both trained WSET, and so people who are trained in the quartermasters have a certain way of explaining a wine. I don't always find them totally relatable to people. What I hope to bring out in the podcast is just get a feel for how people describe wine and learn from that, and also get winemakers, winery owners to talk about it in the same way, and you hopefully get a kind of a feel for their personality through how they talk about wine, rather than how they talk about answering a question. So coming up, we're going to take a small break here, and then I am going to pour a bagged wine that's from Temecula for Shannon, and I know what it is. She doesn't know what it is. And then she's got one for me, and then we're both going to describe them, and we both know they're from Temecula, so there's no mystery there.
Yeah.
But we'll try to describe them as best we can in our style, so that you can get a feel for who we are in our style. You ready?
Ready.
All right. Cheers.
Let's do this.
All right, and we are back. We've poured our wine. We've tasted our wine. We've evaluated our wine and sort of discussed them a little bit. I guess I'll take the first stab.
Go for it.
Okay, so I have a white wine. Has a kind of a light yellow tinge to it, a light lemon color, as they would say. Gosh, this is a sunny, bright wine with a really not overly top, crisp, kind of acid taste to it. There's like a lingering salty note to it, but it's got these nice, fresh floral notes, blossoms, apple, citrus, peach, lemon, everything kind of in that range. There's also a little undertone of some like leesy chalkiness to it, and a little bit of creaminess that would kind of go around with some lees aging. I don't think there's any kind of oak on this wine. There's no like new oak. It's not overly there's no vanilla. There's none of that big spice notes. There's a really, to the finish of it's really really lingering, a really salty, minerally, with some spice and peppery notes to it. I'd get a little bit of herb on it. All I can think about, this would be like the perfect kind of like beach wine, like with some ceviche, on the beach with some ceviche and some chips.
That sounds good.
So that sounds really good. And I should note, the day we're recording this, it's 87 degrees in February in Temecula. So we're all geared up for summer here. And this wine has me geared up for summer. I really like it. It's super fresh. If I was to take a stab on the varietal, oh my gosh. It does remind me of Albarino. It also reminds me of some Italian varietals. I think it's a nice, clean, well-made white wine made for early drinking, to just be enjoyed. And, it's got enough complexity and lingeringness to it. So it's really pleasing, I think, for people who love wine and people who just, want a wine. It kind of hits both those elements. So that's where I'm at, either Albarino or some Italian varietal, which means it's probably Chardonnay. So
it is not Chardonnay.
Yes, I got that right. Okay, before we reveal them, and if I had if you pinned me down and said pick something, maybe I think I would go with Albarino.
Do you have a guess on the winery?
Do I have a guess on the winery? Well, that just depends on what wine it is. I'm going to guess, because you like Bottiglia, that maybe it's Bottiglia. But if it's Albarino, it's not Bottiglia. So I'm not going to guess the winery. What's your wine?
All right. I have a red wine, and it is pretty pale in color. Looking at it, you would think it's a Pinot Noir maybe, but obviously it's not. We don't grow Pinot Noir in Temecula, or we shouldn't anyways.
We do. La Cresta.
Oh, La Cresta.
Wiens has a La Cresta Pinot Noir.
Interesting.
Anyway, sorry.
Side notes. So this wine is really light in color. It's got that ruby color to it, but it's almost hinting towards what we say garnet, like it's going to the brown color spectrum. And that makes me think it's either a little bit older, or maybe it's an Italian red varietal. I did get a lot of cherry and strawberry notes on the nose. With the very first whiff I got, it was like cherry pie, just straight up cherry. There are some subtle spices to it. In general, I would kind of describe this as it's juicy, it's fresh, it's fruity, but it's got those spice undertones. I think it has really good acidity. It kind of leaves your mouth watering. You kind of want more. It does have some tannins, but they're not overwhelming. I think they're pretty well integrated, so it doesn't dry the mouth out too much. Drinking it, I kind of wanted to pair it with a pasta with a tomato sauce, maybe some bell peppers or sausage in there. But yeah, I actually really enjoy this wine. If I had to narrow down two varietals, I'm leaning Sangiovese, but it could easily be Grenache as well, or Garnacha. But based on the color and kind of that cherry tomato sauce thing, my guess is Sangiovese.
Are you gonna fancy a producer?
Gosh, if I had to pick one, it's really good. So if I picked Palumbo, it wouldn't surprise me.
The other thing I was gonna before we reveal, there is a slight in mine. There's a slight. I can't tell if it's a residual sugar or if it's just a really kind of lingering fruit concentration. Kind of would call it dry extract. There is a lingering RS, which isn't unusual, I think, for Temecula, but I would say it would be unusual for an Italian varietal. So I would almost think that would throw kind of like Riesling into play too. But there really aren't many Riesling producers in Temecula outside of a few that I know of. Ace, and then Akash, yeah. Could it be that? I don't know. I don't get the petroliness. So that's why it takes me to kind of Albarino, because Albarino can be kind of Riesling-like, but with some RS, but without the petrol. So, what about you? Okay, any add-ons? Now that you've kind of thought about it a little bit more, reevaluating the wines, giving it another sniff.
Gosh, it doesn't quite smell like Palumbo's Sangiovese to me. So, backup guess, maybe Robert Manzoni has a good estate Sangiovese. I could see that being this. And
his estate Sangiovese is lighter in color.
Yes.
So, it's very pale in color, and I think this is fairly pale.
It's fairly pale.
You ready?
Ready.
Okay, we'll see how wrong we are. I'm going to mute my mic while I kind of unwrap the wine that I poured for Shannon. All right, and they have from Ace Winery. It's his 2021 Grenache. So you were on the right track. You were on the right track with everything you said, I think. And I don't think saying Sangiovese, when it comes out so pale as it seems to, varietal character changes a lot from producer to producer in Temecula.
Yeah.
Some can make a very dark Sangiovese. Some make a very pale Sangiovese. So this is, but I think this is a tried and true style of Grenache.
Yeah, 2021 Grenache from Ace Winery. It's delicious.
And 13.6 alcohol, which goes to his he likes a fresher style, more acidity. He picks early, and I think it came out pretty well.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Would you buy this?
I would, absolutely.
All right, I think he might have more. It's in the 30 to 35, 40. His prices are also very reasonable for this valley.
Very affordable.
All right, what did you have for me?
Are you ready?
I don't know.
So this white wine, if you had asked me last year what my favorite white wine was in the valley, this would have been it. I've also got a good friend of mine who would agree with me. We've each bought a case of it before. I found this in my wine fridge. I didn't think I had any more left. So it's a 2021 vintage, which is surprising based off how you described it.
Very fresh, though. I don't think it's usually you get some stale factor going on with stuff. So I'm scared to know what it is.
I'm glad it's still fresh.
Well, I was pretty close here. Sort of. It's Mesilla de la Viña Verdejo. So that's interesting. A 2021. Yep. So still tastes really good. This is pretty good. Verdejo, Portuguese varietal. So I don't think I was that far off by saying Spanish. So anyway, really good. And I have definitely confused that with Albarino before, although Albarino is probably a little more canned peach than Verdejo was. And I just didn't even think about it. Really well done. Thank you.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because I know somebody has asked me this before. So Verdejo, spelled with a J, is different than this, which is spelled, if you're reading it, it almost looks like Verdelho. Is it the same grape variety? Because Mesilla de la Viña also has a Verdejo with a J.
Offhand, I want to say that it is not. However, they might be two different, I'm not going to even fancy a guess. That's what Google's for. And I don't know. I really haven't had too many Verdejos. I always took it as it was the same grape, just spelled differently, and maybe a different origin of a region. I think of Verdejo with the J-O, as being from central Spain.
Yeah.
Rueda. Those wines are really intense wines. They also have some very old vines of Verdejo, and they make some really intense wines. And sometimes they are aged in oak or barrel fermented to add a lot of complexity. Whereas this is I think it's Portuguese, very coastal with that salinity to it and minerality to it, and made for kind of like cuisine that sardines and salty kind of like things that you would get on the coast.
Yeah.
But pretty well made. Yeah, I would drink this wine again for sure.
Yeah, it's
the kind of wine it is. Yeah. So that's a wrap on our introductory episode of Pour Temecula. As we talk about it in the show, and Shannon asked me, I totally got that wrong. Verdejo and Verdejo are two different grape varieties. Very distinct, very different origins, very different characteristics. Verdejo, H-O on the end, is from Portugal and is used in fortified and dry style wines. It offers up citrus, tropical fruit, and nutty notes. Verdejo, with the J-O, is native to Spain's Rueda region, and it produces a crisp, aromatic white wine with green apple, citrus, and herbaceous flavors. Sometimes with a little bit of like an almond bitteriness and is often compared to Sauvignon Blanc for its bright acidity. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Pour Temecula and leave us a review. It really helps us keep the conversation flowing. Follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content and updates on upcoming guests. Until next time, keep exploring, keep sipping, and cheers!
Cheers!